The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show.
Welcome into the Hard Count. It is Tuesday, January 27th, 2026. Last one on the face of the planet. Going to make it a great one. Listen, man, Mother Nature was swinging her bat, throwing her fastball, doing everything she could to keep the boys out of the studio. Here in Nashville, Tennessee, it is a balmy 34 degrees. We've been hovering around like the single digits, it feels like, for the better part of the last couple of days. A lot of people without power. Y'all stay safe out there. However, Mother Nature, you got to work a little bit harder if you want to keep the hard count from going out. All right, myself and Caden Smith in the dojo, obviously, as we speak here on this Tuesday. As always, the show presented by BetMGM. Hey, also Super Bowl around the corner. BetMGM's already got a little Any Sport boost token for you. The line's sitting at a rather appetizing 4.5, favoring the Seahawks. So if you want to get on the action, again, use a Any Sports boost token. You get a better payout for whatever you're putting down on the game. But we got a lot to jump into today, man. Just because they're not playing games does not mean we don't have a lot to talk about. We are going to get to a couple of your voicemails, giving us some, I would say, rather constructive feedback on my way too early top 25 that we put out. A couple of objections and notes there from y'all via voicemail form. So if you haven't already called in, 629-888-3931. Leave a voicemail. Keep it around like a tight 30 seconds just so we can get you on the air in an efficient manner. Respond to some of those a little bit later in the show. But I want to start with, speaking of early rankings, let's do some early projections for the top 10 quarterbacks in college football going into 2026. Now, the way I'm defining this, purely a way too early look at what I think these quarterbacks are going to be. So just to reset here, this is not a current ranking. If we were doing a current ranking of what these quarterbacks are right now, this list would probably look a little bit different. Once again, these are early projections for these quarterbacks. We reserve the right to change these, probably will change these once we get a little bit further into the year, past spring ball, get some more intel under our belt. Without further ado, though, our early quarterback projections with our top 10. Starting at number 10, man, anytime you do a top 10 list going into a new year of college football, it's never a bad thing to lean towards whoever Lincoln Riley's got at quarterback. Jade Mailata is going into not year 1, not year 2, year 3 in Lincoln Riley's system out there in L.A. Now, if you're a historian of sorts, go look at what quarterbacks have done under Lincoln Riley with ample time in his system. Kyler Murray, second year in that system, won the Heisman Trophy. Okay, Caleb Williams, second year in that system, won the Heisman Trophy. After his third year in that system, was a first-round pick, the number 1 overall pick, rather. Baker Mayfield also won a Heisman. You see where I'm going with this. The longer you stay in Riley's system, the more good things happen to you. We saw a good little jump from Mailata from year 1 to year 2 in that system when he took over the role towards the end of the year in 2024. I think in 2026, if you want to lean towards projecting a Mailata to do some good things, never a bad way to go about it. Yeah, you lose Mekhi Lemon, Biletnikoff Award winner. But I tell you what, if you watched that bowl game now, you saw a one Tanook Hines balling out of control. I'm sure he is receiving a scholarship as well as NIL to be probably receiver 1 for the next year. Bottom line, Mailata, go ahead and book it. 3,700 yards last year. Expect him to build on that here in 2026. We'll get to number 9 here in a second. Before we do, though, if you're a college football sicko, so are we. All right, we're recording a full-length college football show while the rest of our city is covered in ice. All right, make sure you're locked in. Appreciate you being subscribed and making this show what it is. All right, and number 9, kind of hurts my soul putting this guy at number 9. Probably should be, maybe could be higher. I got Georgia's Gunnar Stockton at number 9. Gunnar Stockton, we said it many a time, is whatever you need him to be for Georgia. All right, Gunnar Stockton for me is like the good friend of college football. Hey, Gunnar, we need you to help tow our truck out of this icy situation we're in. No problem, I got you. Hey, Gunner, you got any extra groceries for us? You got any extra salt we could use here, brother? No problem. Gunner, we need 300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 3 incompletions. You good? Gotcha. Gunner, we need $198 through the air, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. You good? Gotcha. Whatever you need him to do, he does that in spades. He probably could have better numbers if he played in a more quarterback-friendly system. The reality is, though, that Georgia wants to run the freaking football and take some pressure off their defense. Now, that wasn't always the case for Georgia this year. Got into a few shootouts. You got to kind of see Gunner rev the engine a little bit. But bottom line, going into another year in that system under Mike Bobo, a guy who, if they make the playoff again next season, will be starting a third different year in the college football playoff, the only quarterback to have that mantle to his name should they arrive there. I'm buying stock in Gunner Stockton, man. I'm buying stock in the Stockton and feel great about doing so at this point in the year. Now, number 8, our first transfer to new destination for next year in none other than Sam Leavitt from Arizona State to LSU. If this feels low when it comes to Sam Leavitt, I hear what you're saying. The reason why I don't have him higher in these rankings as of right now, I want to get some intel on my guy when we get to spring football. If we've learned anything from what this past year was, it's we want to see you healthy during spring practice. Now, Sam Leavitt may or may not be ready to roll during spring ball. There's some ambiguity there, but you watch the dude play, it's pretty obvious he's got the juice. I mean, he's got some gunslinger to him, plays with fire, energy, was super productive at Arizona State, leading them to a Big 12 championship and darn near beat Texas in 2024 in the college football playoff. Like, he's got all the goods. I just want to see and hear some good things about him behind closed doors in Baton Rouge. Now, I love the fit with him and Lane Kiffin. That's a big reason why he's on this list. Like, you don't have to squint too hard to see a transfer portal quarterback doing big numbers their first year in Kiffin's system. Why? Because he's done it now several times over the course of his career. From Matt Corral and what he wasn't a portal quarterback, but Kiffin shows up at Ole Miss and totally ignites Matt Corral's career at the collegiate level. You saw Trinidad Chambliss last year go from D2 to one of the best quarterbacks in the entire playoff. Like, Lane Kiffin's going to get your quarterback right. And Sam Leavitt already has a lot of natural ability. Think Kiffin's going to do his thing. Think there'll be some good things happening in Baton Rouge. But got him at 8. I want to know how we're doing health-wise, all right? I want to see how we're doing there, Sam. Number 7, we got Darian Mensah. Now, at the time of us recording this, Darian Mensah has not picked a new destination for where he's going to play college football next season. We have every reason to believe he's going to end up at Miami, so I'm going to speak under that pretense, and if things change, we'll move from there. Darian Mensah, you turn on the tape, it is astounding how often he's throwing off-platform and throwing off-platform accurately, especially downfield. In addition to that, the dude's ball placement is just like second to none. I mean, he's out there just playing darts and doing so at Duke. Now, Duke was good last year on the offensive line. I wouldn't say they were elite. I wonder a little bit what Darian Mensah would look like behind a top 5 caliber offensive line, which he would be behind in Coral Gables, and maybe even more weaponry around him in the 305. Him and Malachi Toney would be a scary sight together, I'm just saying. So the downfield accuracy, the ability to make plays, the quick release, all those things, it's not hard to fall in love with Darian Mensah's game when you turn on the tape. I think he's going to do huge things should he end up at Miami. But even if he weren't going to Miami, even if he were staying at Duke, newsflash, he would still be on this list. He's got that kind of juice. I mean, 34 touchdowns last year. I mean, it was tied for second in passing yards in all of college football. Dude's a dog, all right? Make no mistake about it. Dude's a dog. And number 6, Notre Dame quarterback C.J. Carr. Again, this is a projection. If this was a current rankings of where they are right now, C.J. Carr might be a little bit lower, but I like what I saw last year from C.J. Carr. Now, the sample size from him against elite competition is a little bit distilled. The big thing with me with C.J. Carr is I think you're going to have to cut him loose a good bit more in 2026 because you lose the best backfield in college football in Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love, right? So anytime you lose 2 dudes that were absolute workhorses for you last year and you're a 55% of the time run the football team, obviously you're going to have to look to your quarterback and say, hey, can you carry a little bit more of the load this year? You're no longer a first-year starter. Can we give you more rope, and can you pull more of that rope and pull us to the college football playoff, which we narrowly missed last year due to this screwed-up system? We'll talk more about that later. But my feel there is I think C.J. Carr, when he's playing decisive, plays really good football, man. Really good football. He's accurate. When he's on time, I think he's one of the better passers in the country. I love what he does throwing the football downfield. Had a top 10 QBR last year in all of college football. I think with him getting a full year under his belt now, and with there being continuity between him and Mike Denbrock, also one of the best QB whisperers in the entire sport, I think that's going to yield for less youthful moments from him. And when you saw him second-guessing or saw him trying to be too creative at times, that's when he got into trouble. I think like the USC game is a good example of this. But when he's on time, when he's dialed in, again, I think the sky's the limit for this guy. So CJ Carr, top 10 quarterback for me ahead of next year. I can't wait to see what he does now with they put more on his plate here in 2026. And number 5, this is where it gets a little bit juicy, all right? Again, projections, I got Indiana's Josh Hoover, okay? Josh Hoover, each of the last 2 years, has been top 2 in passing in the Big 12, all right? Josh Hoover coming over from TCU, if you want to get in the weeds about this, has had more production than Fernando Mendoza had coming over from Cal. Now, I'm not saying Josh Hoover's going to win the Heisman Trophy, but I am saying you want to trust trends in college football? Trust the trend of Kurt Cignetti bringing in a portal quarterback and then juicing them up to be one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten, if not all of college football. Did that in the last 2 years. Curtis Rourke from the Maction over to Bloomington, got him to the playoff. And then Fernando Mendoza last year, where he did speaks for himself with a Heisman Trophy in his back pocket, probably number 1 overall pick, and a national championship, just for good measure. Josh Hoover's raw ability with a little bit of Cignetti sprinkle on there. I'm just saying, we're high on Josh Hoover on this side of things. We're projecting quarterbacks next year. Think he'll be a top 5 cat, and feel pretty good about saying so at this point in January. Now, number 4, sticking with projections. Y'all like Brendan Sorsby. I like Brendan Sorsby probably more than the next guy, we're going to be honest with you. Speaking to a power 4 position coach, they believe that Brendan Sorsby, maybe Josh Hoover as well, but Brendan Sorsby is going to be one of the top quarterbacks drafted in next year's NFL draft. I look at Brendan Sorsby, I just see a smooth criminal, dude. Just the way that he moves athletically in the pocket, the way that he's just elusive when he tucks the ball and runs. I think his motion is super smooth. Like everything about Brendan Sorsby, I think, is going to fit really nicely in a dialed-up offense at Texas Tech. That's where I get excited. I think that what he had at Cincinnati was super solid. But, I mean, he was second-team All-Big 12 last year, and now he's playing in a roster that you would have to think is even more souped up with an offensive coordinator you get probably even more fired up about with Mac Leftwich. I just think this is the Coke and Mentos of the portal right now. Brendan Sorsby, Texas Tech, think they're going to once again be a problem for the Big 12, and I cannot wait to see what he is in that system. That's going to be a little bit more wide open, and another year under his belt, too, starting in college football. Going to be a good thing. I think there's a reason now Brendan Sorsby's getting paid that smooth $5 million to be the guy in Lubbock next year, and I think we see that in a big way in 2026. Now, moving into the top 3. Number 3, I got Texas quarterback Arch Manning, all right? I think that he cracked the code towards the end of last year. It was a slow start. It was a weird start, and it was weird because you saw Arch Manning do a lot of things that looked like he didn't have the juice physically. And you're watching him like bounce a curl route over to his guy against Ohio State, and you're like, wait a second, if you couldn't make that throw, you wouldn't be at Texas, much less starting for Texas. What's going on here? And so as he progresses, you're watching those next couple of games, and you're like, oh, it just seems like it's something between the ears for Arch. And Arch said as much to the Texas media. He's like, yeah, it's kind of mental for me right now. I'm kind of figuring this out. Had the weight of the world on his shoulders going into the season. Supposed to be the number 1 overall pick and the Heisman Trophy winner, all these things. Once he settled in, I think we all got to see, oh, Arch Manning's just fine physically. Like, Arch Manning has all the goods physically. His last 6 games had a total of 19 touchdowns. And so now you pair that experience that he's gotten and this almost mental block it seems like he's broken through with one of the best physical receivers in all of college football in Cam Coleman, and still, I believe, one of the best play callers in college football. And Steve Sarkisian, he's probably got a little bit of a mission on his mind here with what his offense wasn't last season. I just love all those things put together in the pot for Arch Manning. I think they're going to have a massive year with him now catching his stride, carrying over from 25 to 2026. I'm buying stock in Arch Manning in a big way. I think he'll be a top 3 guy when the dust settles on next season as it stands right now in January. And number 2, that Ohio State quarterback Julian Sayin, man. Now, I understand, hey, JD, we're switching systems on the young buck. He had a good year last year, but you lose Carnell Tate. You lose a couple of young, talented receivers in Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham to the portal. Hey, what's it going to look like next year, man? Because we saw him against Miami, and it didn't look all that elite, kind of looked very redshirt freshman-ish, and now we're switching the system on him. Don't love that. Don't love that. I hear you. Fair take. For me, though, I think we were very quick to forget that he also had a new system from his true freshman year to his redshirt freshman year. system in air quotes, different play caller from Chip Kelly to Brian Hartline, now from Brian Hartline to Arthur Smith. My take on this is I fully believe that the system for Julian Sain in terms of like the overall offense will stay similar. I think it's going to be Ryan Day's offense with Arthur Smith's fingerprints on it. Meaning I don't think you're going to see Julian Sain have to rewire his brain schematically and figure out a bunch of new things within the offense. I think it's going to stay relatively similar for him. Same model car, couple of different buttons, new things to figure out. New communication, obviously, with Arthur Smith. But I don't think that we're going to see just a total fall off a cliff moment here from Julian Sain. And what I said last year, completing darn near 80% of your passes. Now, I understand they didn't play all that difficult a competition once they got into the month of October and they were able to kind of coast all the way to the Michigan game. I hear that, but I'm still looking at what he was last year. 80% completion percentage is hard to do in routes on air. He was flirting with that in 11-11 football. So I think Julian Sain now with a full year under his belt, more experience, a year 3 Jeremiah Smith, a year 2 Bo Jackson, more experience on the offensive line. I'm all in on Julian Sain, man. I think he'll be the second best quarterback in all of college football going into next season by the end of 2026. Now, number one, this is one that I think a lot of people will probably have in their own rankings. So if we're the first to say this out loud into a microphone, great, probably not the last. It's going to be Dante Moore. All right, Dante Moore at Oregon is your number one quarterback at the end of 2026. And the excitement for me isn't just what I saw last year, because last year was great, right? I mean, you saw him have no flinch against Penn State in the wideout spot. You saw him battling a monsoon against Iowa. You saw him go put up big numbers against USC and do great things against Washington with virtually no run game behind him. There's a lot there, right? The excitement for me with Dante Moore is I now get the fine wine version of Dante Moore. Because going into the last game of what ended up being Oregon's season against Indiana, that was his 20th career start, which is great. But I think now another year in that system under Dan Lanning, another year in that uniform, another year with those guys in that locker room. I just think like all of the best things for Dante Moore are still in front of him with the experience he's had. Because people forget, man, like yes, he started some games at UCLA. Last year was his first true year as a starting quarterback in college football, wire to wire. I really believe now another year is going to yield tremendous dividends. And I think, too, look at the physical skill set, there's not a lot to ask questions about. He's mobile enough, can make every single throw in the book, even in a blowout against Indiana, where he did not have a great game. Oregon as a whole did not have a great game. Went for like 285, made a couple of throws in garbage time where you're like, okay, that's a little bit different. Like the touch he puts on the football, the ways he can change speeds and layer over defenders, it's very different seeing it in person in the Peach Bowl. That all paired with the maturity he possesses both on and off the field to stay at Oregon for another year and then to not flinch in the eye of the hurricane for the majority of the season. There's a lot to like about Dante Moore. I think he'll be your top guy when it's all said and done in 2026. So we'll recap it here. Jade Miles from USC at 10. Gunnar Stockton at number 9, projecting the next year. Sam Levitt at LSU at number 8. I think that you'll see a Darian Mensah at number 7. CJ Carr at 6. Josh Hoover, Indiana at 5. Brendan Sorsby at 4. Arch Manning at 3. Julian Sain at 2. And Dante Moore at 1. Now, a couple of honorable mentions. I think John Mateer is going to be awesome next year. Didn't have the gall, I suppose, or the guts, maybe is a better way to say it, to put him in top 10 territory right now. Also think Marcel Reed's going to be great. Don't get it twisted. So just want to float those names out at you. But those guys missed the cut for us when our top 10 projecting the next year. But that's how we see it going into next season as we sit here on an icy, like 10/17, January 27th. All right? Now, since we got to talk last together in a full show capacity, college football playoff had some big news. All right, the college football playoff in 2026 is not going to change when it comes to number of teams. However, the structure will look a little bit different. The playoff is staying at 12 because the Big Ten said, hey, we want 24 teams. The SEC is like, no, we want 16 teams. The Big Ten's like, you sure? 24 is kind of nice. I mean, we double the field, probably get more teams in. We all make more money. The SEC is like, no, we're good at 16. Other people in the room are also like, yeah, 16 for us too. And they're like, well, if we can't reach an agreement here, we'll just stay at 12. We'll revisit this thing going into December of 2026 for 2027. So the big changes, though, to know for this playoff going into next season, you're going to see all of the Power 4 conferences get an auto bid. So remember, Duke went 7-5, won the ACC, beat Virginia in that final game of their season, And then it's like, well, is Duke in? It's like, no, they went 7-5. We're not putting them in the college football playoff. If we were going to go to the new structure this past year, Duke would have made the playoff because they won the ACC regardless of ranking. All right, now also important to note here, Notre Dame will be in the college football playoff if they finish in the top 12. So remember now, Notre Dame loses their spot to Miami. They fall to that 10 spot. By nature of the other auto bids, they fell out of the college football playoff. If Notre Dame just makes the field of 12, rather, if they make the top 12 teams of those final rankings, they will be in the college football playoff. So they essentially have like their own auto bid baked in here if they reach a certain threshold of ranking. We'll address that in a second here. But as a whole, man, as you zoom out, I liked that we stayed at 12. I've said this many times. Like if you're going to expand the college football playoff to this egregious number of 24 teams, or even to 16, which I think we'll get to, but I think expanding the playoff is terrible for college football for two reasons. One, a playoff is supposed to be a mechanism by which you crown a national champion. When we expand the field past a certain number, it's like, are we really worried about expanding to crown a champion or expanding to expand our pockets here? That's the way it feels to me, is more of a money play than a what's good for the sport play. And I get it. You can't be naive and think everyone's out here to be for college football. Got a lot of people in charge of college football that don't even like college football. They're just here to line their pockets and wear a cool suit to work and call it a day. I get all that. But at the same time, if we're going to operate by the integrity of our show and tell you what we think is best for college football, there has not been, in the history of the sport, 12 teams, more than 12 teams rather, that can win a national championship any given year. So if we're going to expand past 12, I think we're losing the plot of what a playoff is actually supposed to be about. In addition to that, we've said many times, the regular season is what college football has been built on. I cannot stress this enough. We like the playoff. Playoff is fun. We react to all the games, watch all the games. The games are awesome when they get here. But if you're going to tell me the playoff is king of this sport, you're missing what's made college football since its infancy. We love the fact that a game in October means just as much as a game in December for some of these teams, or a game in November, the fact that every single weekend matters so much is what makes college football so special, because it dials up the passion, the intensity, the importance, all those things. So when you expand the playoff to where you're getting teams that are like 8-4 in the dance, the regular season loses a lot of juice. And I like March Madness. I think March Madness is great, but I'm not watching March Madness until the tournament actually starts. Why? Because it doesn't really matter what happens over the course of the regular season for the most part. I don't have to watch every game with bated breath. Not knocking college basketball, just an example there. All right? So that's the whole thought on the expanded playoff thing. We'll get to more of that a little bit later when it comes to how we think this thing is going to trend in the future. But a thing that's going to get people really up in arms, and I understand why, is Notre Dame getting an automatic bid into this dance. Because you're saying, JD, Notre Dame is not in a conference, but you're telling me they make the top 12, they're into the college football playoff? What's up with that? Join a conference. I hear you. I get you. I'm not even saying you're wrong to feel that way. I'm okay with the top 12 thing for Notre Dame because I'm more in line with like the straight seeding angle, right? I'd be fine if we just took conferences away, period, when it came to the college football playoff structure and said, forget auto bids, give me the top 12 teams, we'll go from there. Like when we're saying we want the best 12 teams in college football to play in our playoff, but we're allowing teams that are ranked 20th and 24th in the dance, what gives? We're not even talking about having the best 12 teams. We're talking about who gets what spot, who's assigned what spot. And so for Notre Dame, if it was like, hey, as long as they win 8 games or 9 games, they get in the playoff, doesn't matter their seeding or their ranking rather, then we'll let them in. I'd have an issue with that. But if we're trying to get the best 12 teams and Notre Dame is ranked within the top 12, I'm not here for the ripple effect or who they'd bump out, but I'd much rather see a Notre Dame team ranked in the top 12 in the college football playoff than a team that's ranked in the 20s or 24 in the college football playoff, which may happen now with these Power 4 auto bids. I'm not crazy about that from a seeding perspective, but the world we live in. That's my opinion. Here's the reality, though. The reason why they're doing this, whether I like it or whether you like it, the reality is Notre Dame is relevant when it comes to the viewership numbers of college football. I'm not really here for viewership determining our structure, but it's straight up like people want to see the Fighting Irish when they turn on their TVs. Straight up. So with that being the case now, college football playoff is, I think, having to maybe account for some part of that. Again, whether it's right or wrong, and that's a big reason why they're getting this top 12 bid. All right, so what's next, JD? This is where the playoff is right now. It's not settling here. You just told me they're going to revisit this thing in December of 2026 for what 2027 looks like. What's coming next when it comes to the college football playoff? One is we're going to probably keep arguing about who should have gotten in when it comes to 12 teams Every single year is going to happen. Like, as long as there is a cutoff, there will be somebody that feels like they got gypped, or you don't like their conference, or they got slighted, or there's bias, as long as this cutoff exists. So what I think is going to happen here is there's going to be enough conversation that persists into next year, because it's sports and there's always disagreement and energy and passion when it comes to these discussions. And so we'll get to Selection Sunday of next year. Someone will feel slighted, and that argument will, I'm sure, have some validity to it, and that will be a card for someone to push for 16 teams. Again, most of the people in the room with these decision makers are saying they're cool with 16 teams. So I'd love for it to stay at 12. My guess is where we're heading next, past this year, would be 16 teams. Not intel, just my guess. I think with that now, we're going to see these people in charge of their conferences with an expanded playoff make sure they get their guarantees. Like, the SEC is not saying yes to a 16-team college football playoff unless they have at least 4 auto bids. Same for the Big Ten. Probably a big reason why they want a 24-team playoff, so they can get even more auto bids in. So what I think the structure will look like with this 16-team playoff, you'll have 4 auto bids for the SEC, 4 for the Big Ten, 2 for the Big 12, 2 for the ACC. All right, so we're at 8 now. Then you'll have Notre Dame with 1 there. Then you'll have the G5 with 1 there. And then I think the rest will be filled out by at-large bids. All right. Again, I'm not saying that I'm for this. I'm just saying I think that's probably where we're headed when it comes to the future of college football. So again, to recount it here: SEC, Big 10, you're at 8. Big 12, you're at 10. ACC, you're at 12. Notre Dame 13, G5 14, and the other 2 I'd imagine are at-large bids. So what does that mean for college football when it comes to our calendar and all that? I don't know how they're going to move around the season, because I would expect the season to just continue to persist further, and that's a whole issue in of itself. I think the most immediate reaction you'll see to this, though, when it comes to how we view college football, I think conference title weekend is on the clock, and it kind of has been on the clock here for a while. What I think you see happen, and we've said this before, I think you go from conference championship games to playoff play-in games within the conference. So, for example here, if I'm the SEC and we have 4 spots to give, our top 2 teams from the regular season, y'all go chill out. We don't need you playing another game. You're our top 2 horses in this dance. We're going to let our other teams now battle it out. So the next 4 up, 3 through 6, if you will, you'll have 3 versus 6 play each other, and you'll have 4 versus 5 play each other. And when it comes to the Big 12 and the ACC, I think you'll have the 2 and 3 play each other, and that'll kind of be how they decide, I think, those prospective bids. So we'll see how this whole thing plays out. That's my guess when it comes to what's coming next. But again, the playoffs staying at 12, cool with that. When it comes to auto bids, not as cool with that. If there's one silver lining, though, it's the fact that it maybe keeps an importance on the conference title race for these different teams, or at least conference games themselves don't lose their luster. So college football is moving and changing. Y'all, to be real, I'm just kind of ready for us to arrive at a certain spot when it comes to what the college football playoff is supposed to look like and the calendar is supposed to look like. Then we can build from there. We're in such a transitional period of the playoff looks this way, but then we're changing the seeding, then we're changing what Notre Dame is, then we're changing the portal. There's no spring window, but there might be a spring window with how these kids roll under. Like, let's just reach a landing spot and build from there. Let's reach a new landing spot, build from there, create new memories, new precedent, and hopefully we can get there sooner rather than later. All right? Wild times. Wild times. Hey, Cato, we had a lot going on, man, over the course of the last couple of days. The college football playoff structure moving and shaking and just a million things going. With us staying at 12, that feels like a win to me. Where are you at on the playoff staying at 12 as it stands right now?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. I don't think there's ever been 12 teams that can win the national championship. I think we're getting closer there, and I think with NIL and the transfer portal, we're seeing the distribution of talent look the way it does across the country, and we're improving and making strides there. But I still think 12 is the right number, and we had 4 for so long. Like, why can't we just make the precedent that we'll stay at 12 for that long? Like, the fact that we're trying to change it so fast now, it's so clearly money motivated. And I think the fact that we haven't even found the right structure within the 12 makes me think we definitely have to stay here, because even within the 12, we have to go back on our verbiage when we have 2 G5s in there that shouldn't be in there, and Boise State gets a bye in the first year. Like, we need to figure out the proper verbiage within the 12 before we start moving on, and I think even now we're not in the clear. Like, JD, hypothetically, what's going to set precedent? Notre Dame being a top 12 team or you being a P4 champion? Because all of a sudden, if we're in a situation like we are this year, where the ACC champions outside of the top 12 and Notre Dame's in the 12, say they're at 12, like what is the committee going to do then? Like I still think there is going to be some verbiage we have to like pick through and understand clearly once we actually get to that time. Because I think even from what we heard, okay, thanks. Yeah, now we know that we're not going to have like 2 G5 sneak in here. But I still think now with the Notre Dame 12 team thing, it's going to be interesting to see if we're put in a scenario where we have to go up against Notre Dame being in the top 12 or what we said about a G5 auto bid or a P4 auto bid. Like college football has not been consistent year in and year out as far as which conferences are going to have better teams and all that. But like, yet we keep making a framework for the playoff that acts like that's a perfect world and it's not. So I'm glad it's at 12. That's the biggest takeaway for me. I'm glad we're keeping it there for now, but I think we should keep it there longer and just keep seeing how we can perfect the 12 given just the college football landscape and that I didn't quite frankly think any of the teams outside of the playoff except for maybe Notre Dame shouldn't have been there.
You know what I think we might see there, Cato, is if like those are the locks when it comes to bids, how many – I mean, the last 2 years we've watched conference title weekend and been like, hey, even if SMU loses, they're in. Even if Bama loses, they're in. Like I don't know if that logic will hold now with all these, locks more or less with these teams being assigned bids like a G5 you mentioned, a Notre Dame we mentioned now, maybe conference title weekend if you're playing a conference title weekend for the first time ever – penalizes you and you drop out of the top 12 because, hey, sorry, Notre Dame needs a spot. Hey, sorry, this G5 champ needs a spot. Like, wish we could help you out here, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, whoever it is. Like, you gotta get bumped back a little bit here, brother. Oregon, I mean, I don't know if Oregon would be in the mix there, but it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah, Caden's solution, the more I think about and the more I stew on it, the solution for this to me is just to turn the top 4 seeds of the P4 into the college football playoff, and if you make it out of your bracket, like out of your conference, then you can go back to the 4 team, and those are our 4. Like I think if you make every team's goal to be a top 4 team in their conference, I think they'd put their head down and try to make that happen. And then once you get in your 4, okay, now 1 plays 4, 2 plays 3, play one more game. Congratulations, you're not only the conference champion, but you were one of the final 4. Like you make the final 4. So the next thing you know, we have the SEC champ, the Big 12 champ, the Big 10 champ, and the ACC champ playing in a 4-team playoff at the end. That's the final 4, and then that's how we get to a national championship. But we had 2 games before that in each respective conference to get us there, and Notre Dame maybe join a conference. I don't know. But, like, it's to me, like, that's the most cut and dry way to do this, or just do 12 with no auto bids, and we just be a top 12 team in the country. Just be a top 12 team. If you're a top 12 team in the country, like, put them in. Have at it, and that's the playoff. And it doesn't – every year is just too different as far as what conferences are the best. Just make it the top 12 teams in the country. If you're a top 12 team, congrats, you're in the playoff. If you're not, I'm sorry, you didn't make it. I think it's one or the other. I think it's pretty simple. And, yeah, man, let's try to figure this out with common sense. It's college football.
It's divided us as a college football public, man, because it's turned to such a our conference, your conference, you suck, this, bias, that. It's just like – it's too much, man. Last thing I'll say, Kevin Clark tweeted this a couple years ago, and I could not agree more. 6 was probably the most logical number of playoff teams to move to after 4. Never even tried it.
Yeah.
We just said 3X that bad boy. More money, more problems. I don't know.
I always liked 8. I like doubling it. I still think 8. I think 8's
I'd been fine with 8.
I think 8's a nice sweet spot. But then we started like now there's no Power 5, now it's 4. You have Notre Dame not in the conference. Like there's too many people to make happy now politically, and we just want to know just put the best in there. Like we just want the best 12 teams in the country. And I think last thing, we need to stop. The rankings show is its own product. I get it, but I think half the opinions we have about this are because we learn about it week by week by week leading up to the final rankings. Like to me, if we got to the final rankings and they were like, here's our 12, and they didn't tell us anything about how we got to that 12, I think we would have all been fine for it. Now all of a sudden, though, we know that Notre Dame got jumped despite not playing a conference championship, and it's like all this mess. Like I think they just got to 1, 2, 3 release them. Like here's your 12 at the end of the year. Like the committee's been doing their work. We trust that you've been doing your work. Here's your 12, and we're good to go. So. Yeah, a lot of little changes I think could make this easier on people's like mental, but there's people with pockets that we have to please too.
Even just the fact they have to justify it after each show is just like, hey, and some of it too is tough because it's one guy representing a group of like 12 or so people trying to make good on like what their opinions are, even though they're divided amongst the room, and you trot him out there and he's got to go talk to ESPN for the better part of 5 minutes and like make sense of a 12 people culmination of 12 people's opinion. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a lot there.
I think we either go don't tell us anything and just tell us at the end, or tell us everything and go full ACC review, and we're just in the room and we're hearing the discussions being had.
I'd like that.
We can hear who's pounding the table and who's not. Like this in between though, where it's like we're telling you every week, and then one person has to like give you like logic for every answer you have. Like it's a terrible job. I wouldn't want to be on the committee having to do that unless we had a better direction for it, because it's just hard to please everyone. But yeah, 12 teams, at least we're at 12. Hopefully we get a little bit better every year at this playoff. That's kind of how you have to look at it, I think, is hey, we're inching closer and closer to hopefully the best case scenario for college football, which is what we want on this show. That's
where I fall. Let's reveal all. Let's do a tell-all every single week. We can hate you for it if we want, but we're just going to be super transparent. And, I mean, if we've told the truth and we've showed you all our cards, we can go from there. Telling half-truths, and we're not going to show you our metrics, just a weird vibe, man.
Yeah, we'll get you, Pate, Klatt, Andy R. We'll get everyone all together.
Yeah,
sure.
Cato knows.
I'll run the audio, though. That's the thing. Like, these are people that are comfortable giving their takes and saying how they feel about teams. Just make that the committee. Turn the audio on, and we can just watch how you parse through these 12 teams. And I think it'd be more affable. It'd be more relatable for people other than this behind closed doors committee. And then, hey, we're going to throw one guy out here in a suit to explain how all these differing opinions got to this one ranking. It's
those goes.
Dibs on not doing that.
Those goes, not it.
Yeah, man. CFP. I mean, the world of college football. Month of January, still got the playoffs to talk about. Gotta love it.
Gotta love it, man. Hey, if I'm in that room, I'm not going in there without you, brother. Tell you that right now. If we go down, we go down together, Chainsmoker style. Speaking of going down together, man, a lot of people had critiques on our way too early top 25. And you know what? What I've always said is if you make a ranking or a list, congratulations, you've already lost, and that's more than fine. So we got a good amount of feedback from y'all with your objections to our, again, way too early. It's January, way too early rankings, and I'm going to go ahead and unpack those as it stands right now. 629-888-3931. Make sure you call in, leave a voicemail right around 30 seconds. The best way to keep up with all that is follow me on socials, Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. But we got, speaking of the Fighting Irish, one of you called in and said, hey, brother, 9? Way too low. Way too low. We got to take a listen.
Hey, it's Riley from South Bend, Indiana. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. You have Notre Dame at number 9. Heisman favorite as the front runner at quarterback. They're second to third in odds to win the whole damn thing. I really don't know what you want more out of Notre Dame. It's pretty ridiculous. You're on the opposite side. No, you're on the right side of ESPN because I know that's who's funding you and everything. I get it. But you gotta give the Irish some respect, dude. You never give them respect, but I'm sick of it. You'll see next year, and I hope you call me back once we're holding up that trophy in Vegas.
Cato on the ones, the twos, and the beeps there, huh? Keeping the show kid-friendly. We're all the way here for that. So let's start with the first part of that. If ESPN is cutting our checks, they got the wrong address, brother. Haven't seen a dime from the worldwide leader in sports, fortunately and unfortunately. In addition to that, Notre Dame, they're with NBC. Okay, so if ESPN was in the mix, I don't know how that would impact Notre Dame so much. Maybe your point is that Notre Dame being lower in the rankings means that we're with ESPN. Couldn't tell you, but I will say this. Notre Dame being in the playoff, with the brand that they are, I mean, they just got a ticket to the front of the line with the whole auto bid situation, which I told you here. I'm here for that with how we're doing these 12 teams. If Notre Dame is one of the top 12 teams in college football, they should be in. I was telling y'all last year, they're good enough to be in the playoff. Could have won a couple games in the playoff last year. The structure just sucks. So I hear what you're saying. I appreciate the juice. I'm not even saying you're wrong for feeling the way that you're feeling. With that being said, I think where we are right now in the college football calendar with our way too early rankings, here's what these rankings are for me. I had to go ahead and just define this for myself even. Preseason rankings are based on what you have roster-wise and then who you are. Meaning, do I trust your head coach? Do I trust your ability to replace what you lost? Do I trust what you did in the transfer portal to replace the production that's not there anymore? All that. Do I trust the trend of what you are as a football team? So Notre Dame being number 9 for me, I don't think that's actually all that low. Because here's my thing: if Notre Dame, again, it's not a projection to say current ranking, but if it was a projection, let's say Notre Dame finishes number 9 in those final rankings on Selection Sunday, they're in the dance. Notre Dame being number 9, they're in the dance. They're in the college football playoff. Notre Dame being at number 9 on Selection Sunday also now would mean they're likely 11-1, maybe 10-2, but it means they have a win either over Miami and or over BYU. Like, I'm not down on Notre Dame by any stretch of the imagination. Also, if you think that there's bias against Notre Dame, well, I'm telling you they mean number 9, and you think that's number 9 in the college football playoff rankings at the end of the year, well, then go prove a point. If you're Notre Dame and you think there's been bias against you or people are against you not being in a conference, whatever it is, one, again, you just got an auto bid to be in the top 12, which I'm supporting here openly. Second, once you make the dance, go prove a point like you did in 2024. Go beat a Georgia team in the Sugar Bowl. Go on a run and go play for a national championship. Go prove a point to the rest of college football that you belong in the college football playoff. You being a number 9 in these rankings, if you think they're too low, if you want to fast forward and use them as a projection, which they're not, but if you do want to use it as a projection, I'm telling you, I think they make the college football playoff as we sit here in late January. So I'm not down Notre Dame by any stretch of the imagination. Notre Dame and preseason rankings in general, I think, are kind of like a complex dating relationship, all right? There's a difference between being slow on a team or being down on a team. Down on a team, it's like, hey, I don't like them at all. I don't trust them. I don't know what to make of the roster. I'm out. I'm not out on Notre Dame or down on Notre Dame. I would say I'm slow on Notre Dame. And that's my thing. Like, can I just get a second on the Fighting Irish? Can we just get a minute to see what they are during spring football, to get some intel about that running back room? Because Notre Dame lost both Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, 2 of the best running backs in college football. Together, they made it the best backfield in college football. All right? They were a 55% of the time run the football team. You lose all that production in those 2 backs. I think Notre Dame's going to be great next year. I just told you I have them in the preseason playoff for me right now. But I would like to see a little bit more and hear a little bit more about that backfield and about that, just offense as a whole when we get to spring ball. So I may have Notre Dame even higher in my final rankings when it comes to the preseason. But again, that backfield and then also the fact that you lost 2 of your top 3 wide receivers, I'm not down on Notre Dame. I'm just slow on Notre Dame. I want to get a little bit more information. Okay, it's like I'm not going the Southern Baptist route here and trying to get married after our first date. Got people that I went to school with that are like getting married to their seniors in college. I'm like, how about you just take a second and file some taxes for once? How will we figure that out? And then we can talk about getting married and starting a life together. Let's just take a second here, Notre Dame. I want to get a little bit more familiar with you. I'd like to get to know you better, take you on a few dates, have some time, some intentional conversation, and then when we get to fall, get to prediction season, then we can get really up in arms about where we have Notre Dame in our preseason rankings and projections. This is just a ranking as it stands right now. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Notre Dame went out and won the national championship in 2026. Wouldn't shock me. But also, just if you want to talk about odds in the preseason and tying that into your own rankings, Texas last year had the best or second best odds to win the whole darn thing. They missed the playoff. So if your preseason odds are a reason you're tying to where your team should be ranked, I don't have anything for you. I'm not down on Notre Dame. I'm slow on Notre Dame. And what I said before, if we end up being in on the Irish as a team that's going to go win a bunch of games and be a team that makes the playoff and all those things, I'm not going to jump off the bandwagon when we get to August. Like, I'm not going to tell you right now I think they're a top 3 team. Fast forward the tape to fall camp. Then I'm like, actually, give me number 14 for the Irish. That's not going to be how I operate here, right? So we're slow on the Irish. Don't think that's a crime. I think all good things take time. Want to build a foundation together here. Let me get more intel on the offense. Let me hear more about CJ Carr and the progress he's made as a starter. Let me get some more spring propaganda, and we'll be there. I'm not down on the Irish. Just a little bit slow on the boys out there in South Bend. But, of course, appreciate you calling in. Now, anytime you make rankings 2 in the preseason, you get a lot of alleged bias accusations. I understand where we're coming from when it comes to how we went about our top 25. We had 10 teams from the Southeastern Conference in our way too early top 25. And obviously had some disgruntled viewers, which more power to you. Appreciate you calling in. Go ahead and take a listen to what they had to say.
Hey, JD, named Bryce, calling from Indiana. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Love the show. I saw your 2026 rankings, and you got 10 SEC teams, man. Year after year, you see the media hype up the SEC as its gauntlet, use that to justify putting 6 teams in the playoffs, even though they underperform in the regular season and the playoffs. SEC, it just means more like the SEC is just ESPN's. Yeah, fill in the blank. Because of this, my beautiful Irish get bumped for teams like Bama and Oklahoma. They didn't even get a chance to compete for a natty. Again, love the show, man. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Go Irish.
Heck yeah. All love and respect, too. All love and it's all just beautiful banter going back and forth here. So appreciate the heck out of you calling and giving your take here. I get where you're coming from. 10 of the top 25 is a lot. But when I speak to our preseason rankings, I want to reset how I view these things. I am trusting who you are, and I'm trusting what you have. What the SEC has across their conference is a lot of really good players. This is not a prediction for the SEC to have 10 teams in the final top 25 of 2026. That's not what I'm saying. I also want to make this very clear. I'm not even telling you the SEC is the best conference in college football. In fact, I would argue right now that's the Big Ten. How would you argue against that? They've won the last 3 national championships. The Big Ten is up and to the right when you look at the recruiting rankings as well. But if you want to look at the macro level of what these conferences are and where these really good players are across college football, I mean, since 2015, the SEC has had the most first-round draft picks every single year of the final recruiting rankings for us here at On 3. Rivals, rather. 7 of the top 15 teams are from the SEC. Let's also not pretend like the college football playoff didn't consist of 5 teams from the SEC in the top 12. 7 of the final 15 were from the SEC. So, I just need to make this very clear. I have no dog in the fight when I tell you that those numbers are what they are relative to the talent profile of those different teams across the Southeastern Conference. If anything, I actually lean more Big Ten if you want to look at my bio and where I'm from. Grew up for the most part in Southern California, went to school in the Northeast. I don't have this dog in the fight when it comes to the SEC. This is purely what I think about these teams right now, what the numbers say, relative to the talent profile. So, again, across the board here, if you're saying the SEC is the best conference, I think you're probably out to lunch a little bit because of what the numbers have been on the field. If this was a projection to the end of next year, the numbers for us would probably look a little bit different. But what I do want to say is, as much as people believe SEC bias exists, I think anti-SEC bias also exists, a conversation we've had on the show before. And for the people that are anti-SEC, can I just say this? I see you. I get it. I understand why you feel the way you feel. Your reasoning behind it is valid, and probably a lot of it's personal too, and I don't think you're wrong for feeling that way. You're tired of hearing SEC chanted at different bowl games that you've been to or watched on TV. You're tired of seeing that conference beat their chest and say they're the best and they're this and they're that. You're tired of hearing Georgia fans bark at you and belittle your conference and speak. I get all that. The SEC is a lot of things. Quiet's not one of them. Shy is not one of them. They're not lacking confidence. The SEC beats their chest and pokes their chest out and says whatever they want to say over the course of the last 10-plus years. And so now that things are starting to switch a little bit, and it's leaning back towards the Big Ten when it comes to the landscape of college football and winning national championships, I understand every single angle you would take is saying, you're not so bad anymore, huh? Bully on the block, finally got what's coming to them. How's that medicine taste? Your own flavored, huh? Not so great anymore. I get where you're coming from. I get it. But if we're going to be fair about this, we have to understand that that part of this conversation exists in the world of college football. There's SEC bias, 100%. There's also anti-SEC bias. A great example of this. Look to this past year with conference title weekend. Bama gets skull-drugged by Georgia. Just is embarrassing. For everyone in Tuscaloosa, they want to wipe that one from the memory bank. A lot of people lined up to get severed emotionally, so they could just forget the Alabama thing ever existed. I understand that. If you didn't understand the severance reference, no worries about it. A lot of people were shouting now, hey, Bama should be out of the college football playoff right after that, after conference title weekend. Those same people a year before were saying there's no way you can leave SMU out. Yeah, they lost the ACC championship, but come on. I mean, look, you can't leave SMU out. I understand those games look different. I get all that. But those same people were saying conference title weekend should never hurt you as a blanket statement, and then a year later are like, get Bama out of there. I'm not telling you you're wrong for feeling that way. I'm just saying let's not act like SEC bias doesn't exist in an anti-level as well. So to address your point here to these 10 teams in the top 25, right now this is heavily based on where I think a lot of the good players are. Now, will they finish 10 teams in the top 25? Probably not. That would surprise me if we got 10 teams in the top 25 from the SEC. But I don't think it's all that irresponsible when there was 7 teams that finished in the top 15 of last year's final rankings and 5 teams in the playoff from the SEC. So I'm not telling you the best conference, not telling you they got a stranglehold on college football, but again, if this is going off of what you have on your roster, there's a lot of really freaking good players on these rosters across the SEC, and the recruiting rankings currently back that up. All right, so that's our take on SEC bias in the rankings, but again, appreciate you calling in. Appreciate y'all calling in, all right? Now, speaking of the SEC, had one of you calling and said, Georgia, where you got the Dogs right now in your rankings, Jay? Do you got them number 2? That's way too high. One of you thinks they should be a good bit lower. Go ahead and check this out.
Yo, JD, this is D Weathers coming out of Poughkeepsie, New York, and I want to let you know that I love the show, but you clickbaiting with your top 25. I'm going to need you to remove Georgia all the way out of the top 5 for a second. They've been in the playoffs twice, and they ain't do nothing there. And they've had the break. So just remove them from like the 6th and the 10th spot, and anything with Oregon less than 2 is blasphemy.
D, appreciate you calling in, man. In Poughkeepsie, New York, baby. In the Timbs. From Cato's country, baby. Listen, I hear you. I get where you're coming from. I understand the thought of, well, Georgia, they've been in the playoff the last 2 years, won the SEC the last 2 years, then they get that bye and they lose to Notre Dame the first time around. Okay, Notre Dame then went and played for a national championship. Good for them. But then they get back there and they lose to a team without their head coach in Ole Miss. JD, what's up? You got them in the top 5? You bugging, to quote our friend D. Weathers. We'll talk about this right now. But really quickly, if you're a college football sicko, if you're a Georgia fan, if you just love this sport, man, you want to talk about it year-round, you need a fix year-round, we're here for you. All right, we get to talk college football every single day on this channel, so make sure you're subscribed. Appreciate the heck out of you for it. Last year for Georgia, on paper now, not by nature of the betting odds or how people viewed Kirby and company, by nature of what they had on paper, should have been a step back from what Georgia expects. Why? Because there's a bunch of first and second year players. We sat down with Kirby at SC Media Days, and he's like, yeah, I got a lot of young bucks here, a lot of excitement, feel good about this team. However, yeah, we got a bunch of dudes. I think the numbers he put to it were 80% first and second year players. So if we've seen now anything across college football, experience wins. Experience. Look at Indiana. Everyone's knocking them for having an average age of like 22, 23 years old. They won a national championship. Experience matters in the sport. And Georgia really didn't have that much last year. And still, even with the lack of experience, even with a first-year starting quarterback, Gunnar Stockton, they still won the SEC. So if you're telling me last year was the green year of sorts, going into 2026, trusting what you have and who you are, I trust both those things in a big way for Georgia. Got these young bucks on the back end now getting some seasoning. Gunnar Stockton with a full year under his belt. Another year in Mike Bobo's system. Just a little bit. I'm here for that for Georgia. I think that's going to pay massive dividends because for me now, that was what was missing down the stretch. Georgia was all the things. Gritty, relentless, talented, tenacious, like all the things that you would want from a character trait perspective, you had because of who Kirby Smart is and because of who their leadership was with Gunnar Stockton in that locker room. But when it came time to go win those big games in the playoff, they weren't able to make good on that, in my estimation, because of what they lacked in that kind of a moment. Now, I'm not telling you that Ole Miss had that in spades, so it just kind of is one of those things you charge for the game. But I think when you look to 2026, I get excited about the fact that if Georgia wins the SEC for the third year in a row now, and they get back to a spot like that, there will be a lot of individuals that have played in that kind of a setting before and are teed up to do some good things once again. So to answer your question here, Deer, to speak to your point about Georgia in general, I get where you're coming from of, well, they haven't won anything, JD, when they get to the playoff. Why should you trust them? To me, if you're on the field and you've earned the right to be in that situation on that field, it's hard for me to knock you when you lose a close game to Ole Miss that comes down to the fourth quarter, and the same deal with Notre Dame. Like, both good games. If Georgia walked out there and got the doors blown off twice, maybe we revisit this and say, hey, what's going on with this? Is playoff Kirby losing his touch and all those things? I have a really hard time saying that with what they've done these last 2 years, with them being in that game the last 2 years, them winning the SEC the last 2 years. I don't think it's really a knock. They haven't won anything. I think it's more difficult to knock them for being in the playoff with the bye the last 2 years. In my estimation, again, trusting what you have and who you are. Who Kirby Smart is still, I believe, one of, if not the best coaching resumes in the entire sport. Like, we could go back and forth about where is he with Cignetti and what Cignetti's done the last couple. I get all that, but I'm just saying Kirby Smart, man, talk about what he's done as a head coach. He has won less than 11 games, not counting COVID, once during his time at Georgia. At Georgia, he went 8-2 during COVID. All right, so you played 10 total games, you won 8 of them. It is what it is. That one time, he didn't win more than 11 games. His first year on the job. Kirby Smart's coached 10 years at Georgia, 85% winning percentage in the SEC. This is not like he's out there in the ACC just feeding off of Pitt and off of Duke. Like, he's 85% win percentage in the SEC. Let's not act like Kirby Smart turned back into a pumpkin. Let's not act like he just doesn't have the juice anymore. Yet they won the SEC the last 2 years. Now, you didn't win the national championship, and so I get why that kind of feels flat for college football fans. Some of that, I think, is also baked into the expectation of who you think Kirby Smart is in your mind. In your mind, he's the next Nick Saban. Y'all, there's no other Nick Saban. Nick Saban's a one of one. There will not be anybody that goes on the run that Alabama was on during Nick Saban's time. One, because the format of college football has completely changed when it comes to winning a playoff in general. And two, Nick Saban's Nick Saban, and that's it. There's no other clone. There's no other similarity. There's no other comp. Nick Saban is Nick Saban. Full stop. So for Kirby Smart winning a national championship last year, or the last couple of years, rather, I'm not thinking any less of him. Let's just shrink this whole conversation to the SEC itself. We can talk about, the top 10 and where you see Georgia. Like, I think the conversation with Georgia in the context of the SEC is a fair one to have, because if you think they're the top of the SEC right now, you probably think they're a top 3 team in college football, right? And the conversation is they shouldn't be top 5. Who do you trust more right now in the SEC? Texas? They beat Texas 35-10 last year, y'all. Texas will be good this year. They got Cam Coleman. I think they'll be a force to be reckoned with. It wasn't close when they played last time. All right? Ole Miss. Maybe if Trinidad's there. Sure. They beat Georgia in the playoff. I understand that, but it's a new head coach now from the ground up. It's probably going to be a first-year starting quarterback in Deuce Knight if Trinidad Chambliss does not get approved to play. If Trinidad Chambliss gets approved to play, different discussion, and we'll go from there. But as it stands right now, I don't know if that's going to happen. LSU, hey, y'all, if you watch this show, you know your boy is pro LSU to a fault, to the detriment of crow in my mouth. But you got 40 new transfers, got a quarterback who may or may not be ready for spring. I love LSU. I don't know if I trust them more than Georgia right now. So that's kind of where I'm at with Georgia. If it's based on trust with what they have and who they are, it's hard to see too many holes in what they have in that house on the roster and who Kirby Smart is as a head coach based on his resume. So Georgia, then they're a top 5 team as it stands right now, and it's hard for me to feel differently when it comes to all the things in-house in Athens. Hey, kid, I want to give you your flowers really quick. The boy called his shot way back, and I want to say even spring, maybe pre-spring. You said, give me the dogs to win the SEC. I'm over here taking the eye candy of LSU. You had some people going for Texas. You were like, nope, give me Kirby and the boys. Are you any lower on Georgia than maybe the average bear is as it stands right now in January of 2026?
No, if anything, I'm higher for all the reasons you said. I mean, last year was the tough to kill year, and then they evolved into just absolute monsters that were lifting the SEC championship trophy again. I expect the same things from them. They're going to be more experienced this year. I think they're now, the further Kirby gets from postseason success, the more of an edge and chip I think they have. So I think they're keeping the chip on their shoulder this offseason. The fact that that national championship appetite hasn't been fed in a while only makes them more dangerous. I'm high on the dogs. The dogs are barking. I'm a bark boy, as we've mentioned before. And yeah, I mean, I'm rocking out with them. Our rankings are a little different at the top. I think you have the right teams. I think Indiana has the belt until someone takes it from them, just because I don't think they lost too much of what they have that worked for them this year. And then after that, I have Georgia. I think the dogs are right where they need to be, number 2 team in the country in the month of January. And can't wait to hear more about them and what they got going on in Athens this spring, summer, and fall camp season, man.
Couple of bark boys out here. Couple of bark boys. Yeah, Cato called his shot. Freaking bullseye for the guy out there. We'll finish up with this one. We put Texas A&M in our way too early rankings. Again, this January, way too early rankings at number 8. And one of you called in and was like, hey, listen, I'm calling from Aggie Land, but JD, number 8? Sure about that? Go ahead and take a listen.
This is Cam from Aggie Land. I think you got A&M ranked way too high, man. Number 8, yeah, they need to come in maybe high teens, low 20s. They'll do good. But ranking them 8 from the get-go, it never works out for them.
Well, I just appreciate the tone in the voice there of like, hey, man, that's some bad news for you. Hey, I don't want to be the guy to tell you, but A&M at 8, I don't think it's going to work out. So we, again, appreciate all y'all calling in, man. It's just fun having a conversation back and forth, and always nothing but respect on both sides of the thing, so we appreciate the heck out of y'all for it. But here's my thing with A&M. What am I selling my stock on with Texas A&M from what they were last year to this year. Now, if we had A&M top 3, different discussion. But A&M at 8 in the month of January, the things that would make you nervous are what? You lose, your offensive coordinator in Colin Klein. You lose Casey Concepcion. Backfield going to look a little bit different. But I'm like, still got Mike Elko. I still got Marcel Reed. And now the thought is that Marcel Reed and the entire offense with Mario Craver takes even another evolution forward. And they build upon what last year was. You kind of get some of those squirrely mistakes out of the system. And we can kind of set our feet a little more consistently, all those things. But y'all, for me, I don't really know what there is to sell all the stock on what A&M is right now. I think what we've seen from A&M now in a 2-year sample size under Mike Elko feels like it's pretty solid. And when I say solid, I don't mean in the sense of like, hey, it's good, it's a good product. I mean like solid in the sense that I don't think the foundation of that thing has any give to it. I think A&M, from a roster perspective, was always going to be in a good spot. But like we've said many times before, what you have in Mike Elko now is someone to take that piece of paper that had a lot of good names on it, and a lot of good, rated players on it, to actually go produce on the field with a culture that actually means something. Like, to me, Mike Elko is that common denominator to buy into for Texas A&M. And what he's, in my mind, done now in the course of college football, the landscape of college football, rather, he just has a ton of trust for me on this side of things. What he did at Duke, what he did in year 1 at A&M, what he did last year. I understand that year 1 for everyone in College Station felt very battered Aggie syndrome-ish, because you enter the month of November, you got a chance to go make the playoff, even the last game of the regular season. You got Texas rolling in. Hey, if we beat Texas at our place, we have a chance to then go punch our ticket to the SEC championship game and then go play for the playoff if we win the SEC. Like, there was a lot of so close but no cigar. And we were on this side of things saying, hey, listen, I get why it's frustrating because it feels familiar, but it was year 1 for Mike Elko. And you were on the doorstep, the final game of the regular season. Like, just hold on to hope here, babe. And then that ended up, having, again, that other evolution to it, where in year 2 you go make the playoff, you go 11-1 and all those good things. I just think that he's got a certain quality about him that I feel is a similar quality to what Cristobal has at Miami. I think that's kind of who A&M is. I think they are SEC Miami in some ways. Now, maybe not as physically imposing from a size perspective of Miami, but I just think you look at A&M now and you know who their identity is. That wasn't always the case. With Jimbo there, to knock on Jimbo is like, we're supposed to have a quarterback whisperer as a head coach. We're supposed to be talented and be this offensive team, but it feels like we're very predictable offensively, and it feels clunky culturally. We couldn't really figure it out. With Mike Elko, in a 25-game sample size, now, like, oh, I know who they are. They're tough. They're physical. They're relentless. They have some juice offensively now. You would hope that juice offensively stays with the internal promotion for Mike Elko to the OC position of Holloman Wiggins. But I think there's a real identity here. Similar thing with Miami. For the longest time, it's like cool brand in South Florida, so they should recruit. And then over the course of a couple of years, it was like, okay, they're good on line of scrimmage. They got a certain character about them now here in year 4. Like, I know who they are. And so for Mike Elko, if that's going to be the calling card here, there's not a lot for me to sell on here with A&M. What's going to be required of A&M, though, when it comes to what next year is, there's got to be some getting over the hump to it from what even last year was. And you're saying JD went 11-1, made the college football playoff. Did we not clear the hump? Well, now the thing with A&M is there's always going to be a little bit of a stigmatism around that logo until you make people forget about it and clearly define, hey, that was old A&M, this is new A&M. I think people are still viewing A&M as like this one-hit wonder. Hey, A&M had that one-hit season. It was awesome, good for Elko, and then A&M regressed to being A&M again, right? All flash, no substance. The thing about one-hit wonders that end up being, phenomenal artists in the music space, you got to have one hit to have another. you got to have one go platinum before you get a second to go platinum, man. It's just kind of the way the world works. And so I lean more towards that angle for A&M than I do that was a flash in the pan, one-year wonder, one-hit wonder than anything else, okay? So when you look at what they're going to be here in 2026 based on these rankings, again, I think Marcel Reed, if he could just cut down on turnovers and be a little bit more reliable, I don't see what's not to like about A&M. I will always trust the defense as long as Elko's there. By nature of how he operates, I will also always trust the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of football. I think A&M is going to be a tough out for the foreseeable future. And so with that being the case now, if we find ourselves once again on Aggie Island sipping a virgin margarita of sorts, no problem with that. No problem with that at all, because y'all, to be real, we were at that exact same spot right around this time last year. We said preseason, after the national championship ended in Atlanta, go back to the hotel, shoot the show, way too early top 10, A&M number 10. Took some kickback, said, are we sure about A&M? Texas always does this and that. Texas 8-4. And then wouldn't you know it, go on a run, 11-1, make the playoffs. So if we are too high on A&M, that's not unfamiliar territory for us, and we feel more than fine riding that out into spring ball until we get some more information. New information, new opinion, but with the information we have right now on A&M, feel really good about them having them at number 8, and all that to me is tied to Mike Elko and the potential, maybe expected progress of A1 Marcel Reed. All right. Hey, Cato, we talked a lot about A&M over the course of this season with just the excitement and the big moments and all those things. It feels to me like if Marcel Reed just clicks one more year forward with what you expect from I guess it would be 2.5-year starter by the end of next season, should be in good shape. What in your mind is the biggest thing ahead of A&M to build on what they had last year into next year?
Yeah, I think if you keep Colin Klein and you can build on Marcel Reed and his development, I would have felt like just as good about A&M and him getting better. But the fact that you're promoting from within makes you think you can keep a lot of the same structure in there. But can their new offensive coordinator, who was their wide receivers coach before, can he get the absolute most out of Marcel Reed the same way a now head coach caliber kind of coordinator will? That's a big question for me. And the big question, too, is just replacing depth, and can they perform against big-name teams? They're losing a ton of guys on the offensive line, the defensive line, a lot of production. Torian York is like a irreplaceable kind of player, is a leader of a defense and a guy in the middle. So they have a lot to replace on defense, a lot to replace on the offensive line. Those are big questions for me. And the questions are, too, can you perform in bigger games that are kind of more expected this season? When you look back at what Texas A&M did last year, congrats for the win against Notre Dame. That was an absolute thriller and a great game. But across the board, I mean, beating Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, Arkansas, LSU, Missouri, South Carolina, like, now that we know what we know, none of those wins are super, super impressive. And then you end the season with Texas and Miami, which are by far the more higher caliber teams on your schedule, and you didn't deliver the mail on those. So this season, when you have games against Tennessee, games against Alabama, at LSU, which will be a revamped team, you go to Oklahoma and then, of course, play Texas again. In those games, can you perform better than you did this past season when you played against the two best teams on your schedule, quite frankly, to end the season? So those are my big question marks for me, and I'm kind of a little bit more down on A&M heading into the year because of that, but I still think the 8, 9, 10 spot in the rankings is pretty comfortable for them, because I don't think there's a bunch of teams that would just beat A&M that aren't already ranked ahead of them in your rankings. So I think they're in a pretty decent spot. I might be able to, maybe Oklahoma does a little bit more against them. Maybe I like Notre Dame and more of a rematch this year, but I think they're right around the same spot that you have them, and I think they have a lot more to prove this year, especially Mike Elko. You trust the Mike Elko of it all, and so do I, but I think there is more of a proving ground for both the schedule they have this year and some of the depth pieces they have to replace on the offensive line and the defensive line, quite frankly.
I think it's a great point about the big games. Like, whenever I've climbed one mountain in my life, and climb is a pretty big stretch. Like, I summited Mount Rainier, 14,000 feet, no flex, is what it is. But whenever you are ascending to that level of altitude, you get to base camp for the first night. So you climb up a decent way altitude-wise. You stay at base camp for a few hours to acclimate to the altitude. Once you get acclimated, then you go climb and try to reach higher altitude. It felt like A&M in those big moments maybe tried to climb a little bit too quickly, or did climb too quickly, and you got to those high altitude moments, and it was like, hey, it doesn't look like the same A&M we've seen. Does that past year serve as your base camp to where you're acclimated now to the big spots, and Marcel Reed walks out there against Miami the next time, bada bing, bada boom, hey, big game Marcel, here we go. So I think it's a very fair point, and something they'll have to do here in year 3 to continue to wipe away that Texas 8-4, Texas underachieved, Batter Aggie syndrome, whatever, and try and blot that out a little bit here.
Yeah, you learn a couple lessons from those last 2 losses, and I feel a lot better about them. So second game of the season for them is against Arizona State. That'll be fun. Kennedy Dillingham teams are never an easy out. And then your 4th game of the year is at LSU. So we're going to learn, I think, a lot quicker what this team is about, and if they learn from those lessons from those last 2 losses, especially Marcel Reed being the guy that touches the ball every play, the special teams that went awry for them in the Miami. They got to be more detailed in those big moments where you can maybe go down by quite a few points against South Carolina and be able to come back and get a win there. When you play the best of the best in college football, and that's where A&M's trying to be and was last year from a record perspective, sure, got to be on your A game. So I'm excited for Mike Elko as a coach. I mean, those are easy things to emphasize in the offseason and drill, and hopefully they can put it all together this year and live up to this top 8 ranking you have for the Aggies. You called your shot last year having them in the CFP, so we'll be curious to see where you have them this year when we get down the line and you have to project what that 12-team playoff is going to look like, man.
I'll be curious too. Be very curious too. So we'll see. We'll see where we arrive at that point. LSU too. Dude, they emptied out Death Valley last time they played. Golly, gonna have a lot of juice behind that one. But it's always juiced up on this side of things, man. We just went over an hour. It's January talking college football. We appreciate y'all making the show what it is. For Cato on the ones, the twos, the mics, and the censoring of the voicemails, keeping the show PG at all times. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. We're gonna keep this party rolling. We will see y'all.